Thank you.
Place to think.
Yeah, not a bad place to have the conversation.
Yes, hopefully we'll be back soon.
Obviously, AI over the last few years has been the topic of everyone's conversations.
Correct.
It's huge, and it continues to dominate all of the media and all of the things on LinkedIn and all those kind of things. And I think it's largely warranted, but I think there's certainly a little bit of caution that you need to carry with you as well, because it's changing the paradigm. It's changing from a building systems or using coding languages that are deterministic and changing that into using natural language and building systems that are not necessarily deterministic. So it's probabilistic systems as opposed to deterministic systems. So you've got a lot of challenges where you have to make sure that you're evaluating the output, the results of what the model comes back with. It's not guaranteed to be right. It's not guaranteed to be what you're looking for. It's not guaranteed to be accurate, those types of things. So I think it's a very useful tool, especially in software engineering. I think it's definitely changed the game in terms of what you use to develop software, but it doesn't take away from the need to have a human being still validating what's going on and prompting correctly so that you get the output that you're looking for, then evaluating that output so that you know that what you asked for is what you got. From a software engineer perspective, I think it's no different than any other tools that have come out in the past that have helped us be better at our jobs, be more productive at our jobs, but it's not going to replace us. I don't see that happening. It's of course my own personal opinion, but I definitely think it's a really valuable tool in the toolbox that you need to use wisely and use it to boost your productivity, but not answer the questions for you or verbatim take what the results are and just apply that to whatever problem that you're trying to solve. So that's kind of my overall take on AI in general, particularly when it comes to coding. But I think AI in general as well. It's great for reviewing contracts, but you still need to have a human being look at the output and say, does this output make sense? Do I get what I'm expecting? Those types of things. So it's not just code. It's really any generative AI use cases. It's really all about kind of validating the output and making sure that it makes sense.
Yeah, I hear you. One of the things that I've been hearing throughout these conversations, and I believe it resonates with what you just said, is so AI is here to level the floor, but the ceiling is still something that the humans have to achieve based upon what AI will allow them to do. And the other thing that you mentioned that resonates similar to what I've been hearing is human in the loop to a certain degree to continue validating the output. But one things that I find interesting is there's gonna be a moment that some of those things that we created with AI, we will start to rely on them at the same way we now trust that when you turn your key on your car, it will ignite, and when you push the gas, it will go.
Right.
So, what's your opinion?
Again, it's to me, it just goes back to the fact that it's a non-deterministic system. And I think we're a long way away from being able to just take it for what it is and say, yes, whatever output it gives me is the correct answer.
Correct.
I don't see it anytime soon being if I turn the key, it's going to start kind of a situation. I think it's much more of a, if I turn the key, it might start, but if it doesn't start, I still need to figure out why it didn't start, kind of a thing. So I'm definitely not an AI naysayer by any stretch of the imagination. I think it has incredible use cases. I think you just need to use it for the right use cases and always be wary of the fact that it's not going to tell you the same thing twice.
Yeah, I've been hearing that one recommendation that is being taught lately is that you need to prompt the same thing twice to make sure that the second time is actually better than the first time
Yeah,
because of the predictiveness of how it worked. The first time you ask, it doesn't know what you are going to ask, and the second time already knows.
sure.
So
Sure.
that's how it creates the better outcome.
I mean, there's so many prompting techniques, and I think that's an interesting one. There's few shot prompting where you can give it, some examples of what you want the output to be,
Yeah.
and to get it to replicate that. There's the role based prompting, tell it what you want it, how you want it to act, and be very specific about how you want it to respond, and all of those kind of things. So context is really important for
Yeah.
sure. But even in those cases, you're never going to be 100% sure that all of the neurons in the neural net fired in the same exact way both times. And so you're never going to get the exact same answer. And maybe the second answer is better. I don't know, but you still have to evaluate that. Right? You
Exactly.
still have to look at it and say, is this a better answer than the first time?
Of course.
You know?
Yeah, and about the natural language that you mentioned. So we recently had a conversation that, and actually it's been like multiple conversations that came to this idea that I'm going to share. So at the very beginning of coding, we were talking at the very binary way and throughout the evolution of coding. So we end up doing ensembler, and then we did more second layer type of languages, and then Java came out, and JavaScript, and Python,
Sure.
and
They just kept getting higher level and higher level. Yeah.
correct,
Sure.
really. And now, out of the sudden, you can talk to the thing in a language that is the language that you use on daily basis. But to add to it, I have this conversation with my wife constantly that for the relationship that I have with technology, sometimes people intentionally not to the very geeky type of thing that I'm kind of like a robot in the way I speak or in the way I demand for being asked so that I can provide the right answer. And I see AI doing that thing. And
Yeah.
then if you send a wrong request to the machine is going to assume and it's going to provide you whatever it feels is the closest to what
100%.
you're asking.
Yeah.
So nowadays, especially in a culture that is now not as worry about the way it writes, forgetting about how to use columns and how to use dashes and how to use punctuation in general. If you don't ask the right things, but also well written, the output is going to be exponentially
100%.
long.
100%. Yeah, I think, you brought there's a couple of interesting things that came to mind while you were talking about that. And I think, one is that as we progress in computer science and software engineering with different languages, the one thing you always got to remember is those languages have always been very precise languages, right? So you know that when you say, do this, then that, it's going to do this, then that every time. And there's no ambiguity in code.
Correct.
Well, human language is not that way. Human language has lots of ambiguity in it, lots of sort of interpretation, lots of inference, those types of things. So it's a lot harder to program correctly in natural language than it is to program correctly in a programming language. That said, I think that's why software engineering is not going away anytime soon, because if you understand code and the way that it works, you understand how to prompt better. You understand the way to explain what you're wanting to do to the model so that it does precisely or fairly precisely come back with the answers that they're looking for. You can slap code your way to a lot of applications these days, but they're not going to stand the test of time because you haven't been precise about it. So you need to be much more precise. And that's why for production level systems, yes, absolutely continue to use and leverage generative AI, but don't throw the software engineers out of the picture. Make sure that they're still there because they're the ones that are going to be able to precisely tell the model what they want and make sure that 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 model returns the right answer.
Correct. And one other thing that I've seen is you as a non-technical person can leverage the use of AI to produce something that is workable.
Yeah.
And we have been introduced this idea that workable and reliable is not the same thing, but and that's a fact. So when we talk about reliability in a software system, uh, a person without the background of software engineering might forget about considering some stuff, basic stuff like user management, like security, like I mean things that an architecture with the background of software engineering will definitely have at the very top of the request at his fingernail,
Yep.
and we'll be able to catch that. So there's a meme that has been circulating there, like build me a video game, and that's all the problem.
Right.
And while it might create something,
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that it's going to be the next
It's not,
blockbuster
yeah.
game,
Yeah.
and had the minimum things to actually fully function.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Those cross cutting concerns are really important. Those are things that people do forget about on a regular basis. Uh, the things that I've vibe coded in the last few years, I spend more time prompting the model to do that kind of stuff than actual functionality
Mhm.
of the system. And so that stuff is critical. I mean, you need to be able to monitor your system. You need to be able to authenticate and authorize people. You need to be able to make sure that no one's breaking into the system and that it's going to continue running if something goes wrong. Those are all those software architecture, the ilities that everyone always talks about, or back in the day we always talked about. Those are the things that you can easily vibe code your way away from and forget about and not have a complete system and not have a system that's gonna actually stand up in production. I mean, I can vibe code a to-do list probably 5 minutes, but it's going to take more time to make sure that you've got right user authentication, user accounts, so that its data is separated, and all those kind of things. It takes a lot more to do that than people give credit for.
Yeah,
And the agents are getting better, certainly. I mean, they'll ask you about those kind of things, or sometimes they'll start to anticipate that you need to build those things in, but you still need to verify correctness and completeness.
correct.
Here.
Yeah, I agree. One of the other stuff that it's also a criminality when I think about these things is productivity wise, you are going to be able to definitely achieve more in a short period of time. But one of the things that I hear that blow me away compared to other statements is so the general statement is so I don't need that many engineers as I did before. And part of it is so I don't need juniors because I can command LLM to do that. But in the other way, and this is what worked me, is so on the contrary, I use AI to create better juniors that will eventually be better seniors without the expense of having senior people teaching them how to do stuff. That's
Right.
one thing.
Right.
And the other is so the senior people is going to be more free time to progress in their own developments to the point that they are going to indeed be more productive. But that doesn't necessarily mean that because they are using AI, they are going to do less. On the contrary, they are going to be able to do more efficiently.
Yeah.
And perhaps that's where we
Yeah.
could center.
Yeah. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. The whole get rid of juniors thing is definitely crazy. We need to continue to find ways to bring juniors to be seniors, to be staff, because those are the guys that are going to continue to be the ones that shepherd the models into doing the things we want them to do. It's an interesting take that AI is going to train the juniors to be seniors. I'm not sure about that, but I certainly think that we need to figure out the solution to how do we continue to build juniors up to become seniors in this world of AI. To be honest with you, I'm not going to say that Fama is the world's greatest user of AI, but we do use it a ton, and I think we're pretty good at it. And it's still just a tool. It's still just a means to an end. And yes, we're more productive. I don't think we're 10x more productive. I think that's a number that is sort of a marketing number
Yeah.
as opposed to a reality number. I think everyone across the team, from the most junior all the way up to the most senior, has definitely seen productivity increases using generative AI. But that said, I still think there's a gap there where you need to figure out how to continue to educate more junior people in the world of AI, but also continuing to educate them in software engineering principles. Otherwise, all the seniors and staff are going to retire, and there's going to be no one to continue to make sure that the models are doing the things they're supposed to be doing. Right. I don't have a silver bullet answer to this problem, but it's definitely a problem that we need to solve.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, let's go for the best there.
A lot of what the productivity gains are, in my view, are the fewer conversations you have to have with other people, with seniors, with staff, because you're getting you're getting an answer, a more advanced answer than you probably would have been able to come up with on your own, but you're doing it on your own. I can see that argument to some degree. And I also think it replaces Stack Overflow and looking through the documentation of things. And so there's a lot of productivity gains there. So I can see what you're talking about in terms of not only is it a productivity gain, but you're also learning as you're doing it. Um, I'm still not sure that we can completely say that seniors don't need to interact with juniors anymore because AI is gonna train them. Um, but I definitely can see where there is an aspect of education embedded in what you're doing with
So now, in terms of taking all things in consideration, what would be your advice for other CEOs, other technology leaders in this area in regards to AI itself?
I mean, we've seen our biggest success in building frameworks. So building guardrails within which people can operate. So being very opinionated about what agents run when and what they should do and what the output should be and all of those kind of things. The first year or so, we kind of were playing it by ear. We were like, okay, let's start using cursor, let's start using Claude Code, let's play around with it and see how it works. And everyone kind of came up with their own way of doing it, and everyone kind of either really got into it or didn't so much get into it. So there's varying degrees of adoption and all those kind of things. So once we got through that phase, then we really became much more opinionated. Say, okay, this is how we're going to do it at fun. And that doesn't mean that that's the way you're going to do it everywhere. It's not a universal framework, but it's a common framework. And I think that has definitely improved our usage of it across the board and the value that we're getting out of it, because we know it's much more constrained and much better prompted in terms of what it's supposed to do and what it's supposed to output. What are the underlying context for constraints, like the cross-cutting concerns. You can make sure like the prompts always have that stuff built up. There's no secret injection. Make sure there's this, that, and the other thing as part of the prompt, the system prompt to the agent, rather than leaving it just to an individual developers sort of their own devices. So that's my biggest advice. I think it's just build guardrails, build frameworks, be opinionated, and you'll get the most value.
And what would it be for the individual contributor finding his way out to continue his career with AI?
I think you're going to have to really realize that you're becoming even more of a problem solver than you were in the past. So, you were a problem solver that also had a specific skill set in terms of writing code that a lot of people didn't bring. And now suddenly the lot that piece of your skill set is going away, or you're right, largely going away. There's still certainly reasons why you should know how to code, and uh and it will be helpful in your journey as a software engineer. But I think in general, you're going to be much more focused on what is the problem that I'm trying to solve? Why am I trying to solve it? And then prompting the model to help you determine the how and do and implement it. It's almost to me like I see product and engineering becoming much more converged.
Mhm.
Uh, I think it's going to free up engineers to talk to customers more. It's going to free up engineers to do design more. It's going to free up engineers to think more about the big picture and become more like product managers. It's in some degree than they are now, rather than this sort of product manager knows the what and the why, and then tells the engineer, and the engineer figures out the how and builds it. I think it's going to be much more everyone's doing all of the things. Product managers can become engineers now. Engineers can become product managers. So I think there's a general commingling more of
Mhm.
that. And I think that's the thing you're going to have to embrace. I don't think that the days of getting a ticket handed to you and going off and writing code for 8 hours a day are long done, and I don't think they're coming back. I think you have to be much more willing and able to embrace the problem solving aspects of your skill set that maybe you have in the past. Problem solving in terms of solving business problems, solving real world problems, not necessarily solving how you're gonna write it in code.
Makes sense. Yeah, so it may be more involved on what the means are for the company you're working
Yeah,
for the feature you're trying to build.
yeah. I think you're gonna become more business oriented as a software engineer. You're gonna get more involved in thinking about what's the value that I'm bringing to customers, and how does that bring value to the business that you probably have in the past.
Did you enjoy this video? Then hit the like button and share it with your network. Also be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos.